Hey everybody, Brian Roma with PKI Solutions, and I'm the shopkeeper here at Minding the Key Store. This is the channel that covers all things PKI. If you're on your PKI journey and you are curious about certificates or certification authorities or hardware security modules, this is the channel for you. And today's session is another installment in our Minding the Key Store Vault. This is a replay from a recent office hours session that is being hosted on our corporate website, and we just wanted to put it here on the channel for people to catch up on if they didn't have the opportunity to participate in the call yesterday, because it was during the day and folks are busy and we all have a lot of things to do when it comes to certificate services. Going forward, it is our hope to take these kinds of sessions, these live calls and interactions, and actually move them to this platform. We're doing a bit of an evaluation when it comes to hardware resources that everybody has and making sure that the network connectivity is where it needs to be in order to go live on YouTube and have all of you see and hear the way you need to in order for us to be able to communicate properly. But it's our hope that these office hour sessions and community calls will actually turn into lives that will happen natively on this platform. But we're in an intermediate step right now where we're going to keep working on these sessions on our website, our web streaming platform, but eventually, and we're going to post the replays, but eventually we plan to host them natively here on YouTube. So without further ado, here is our replay from yesterday talking about some things like NTLM authentication in the vulnerability, the recent vulnerability that Microsoft talked about, and some trends that we're seeing in the PKI market space when it comes to HSM as a service, and some PSPKI topics in there. We got some Server 2022 bits in there, so hang on tight, and here we go.
Welcome to Office Hours. It is September 2021, and we are at it once again, talking PKI and taking your questions live. We've got a slightly expanded group of experts today. I'm going to exclude myself from that list of experts and just defer everything to everyone else. Joining us today, we have our, as always, highly regarded Vadims, Jake, and joining PKI Solutions recently is Brian Roma. Say hi, Brian.
Hey everybody, glad to be here. I was on the last one, but I didn't have all of my kit in place, so duct tape together just to join the call.
I think you were actually over on a chat kind of antagonizing us as we were going along. So it was in spirit, if not physical and video. So welcome. You certainly have a nice setting, very tranquil and calming there. You run a little maybe therapy session out of that space as well? Or?
Upon request, I'll send my Calendly link, and then we can book sessions. Coming soon to the PKI Solutions portfolio.
Exactly. Well, if this is your first time joining Office Hours, there's basically no sales, no PowerPoint, no decks. It's us taking your questions live. We've got the number of things that we're going to go through. So head over to the chat channel, introduce yourself if you haven't been here before. We'll also be taking your questions over the Q&A. If you want to respond in chat, we're happy to take your feedback, and maybe we'll move you over to the Q&A if it's something worth coming back to. It being September, I know a lot of people have kids that are going back to school, and work continues the same. I know my day has been changed for the positive. How about the rest of you? Anyone have kids that have gone back? Yeah, is that why suddenly you're both more productive? Is that kind of what happened?
That's why I have to schedule a little bit of time in the mornings and the afternoons to be away to pick people up until they get until they can drive themselves.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, just get them old enough so they can get themselves to and from school.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple things to go through. We did get the one question email ahead of time. If you came with anything, go ahead and post it over in the Q&A. But one of the things I thought that we could start with a little bit was just a quick recap. We talked about this back in August, and this was around the NTLM vulnerability that Microsoft reported on, affecting web enrollment and SESEP. And Jake, I know that we've had a couple customers that have kind of asked for remediation and those sorts of things. How did that go?
It's gone well. Microsoft kind of wavered a little bit from their initial hardcore stance of kill NTLM everywhere. So since then we kind of pulled back, and I'd like to call out when our clients are coming to us saying they're finding tools and everything is based on Vadims PSPKI module. I like to remind them, say, you know, Vadims works with us, right? Oh, they does. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So that's always a huge bonus. Then they think I'm special because I know Vadims.
I think every time that happens, I kind of see Vadims smile just kind of slowly like turn into this Cheshire cat, like, yes.
Yeah.
But Microsoft did what? They kind of changed it from the switch off NTLM to using EPA or is EAP or whatever that was. EEP, right?
Yeah, the extended protection is where they came down with. If you can't go away from NTLM, then the extended protection, making sure that was turned on and enabled. So that's where they landed. Some clients are still going further, and we're some clients just completely removed it because they hadn't used it for so long they didn't want to do it any longer.
Exactly. You know, why have web enrollment if you've got a CLM product or something like that? So
exactly.
I mean, Brian, you come to us from a large enterprise that we don't have to go into, but I would imagine the realities of the completely turning off NTLM in a big environment would not have been an easy thing, would it?
No, in fact, when we're looking at remediating that, I mean, so we kept CA Web Enroll. It was basically a safety net for administrators. We had our own certificate life cycle management tool set that we were using in that particular environment. It was basically a break glass situation so that we could, you know, if we had to get a cert out the door, it was something that the admin team could use. But,
if I'm not mistaken, that's a rather well-known CLM product that's millions of dollars, and you still kept the web enrollment just in case. Is that essentially what that was?
Belt and suspenders. True story. The Cadillac, so to speak, of CLMs. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, we still see customers that do that. Of keeping the web enrollment behind the scenes, and it's certainly kind of gotten nerfed over the years, but it's kind of an easy thing, so people still do it. Not necessarily the most pretty thing to look at, but it certainly does kind of feel a need. But we definitely saw a lot of feedback from customers is that there's no way that we could just completely switch to Kerberos. And it wasn't so much of switching to Kerberos everywhere or on everything. It really was just on the web enrollment, but then there's ongoing issues. You know, and relating to that, I don't think I heard of anyone reporting exploits on this. Like information was out there. It was serious enough to be concerned about. I know none of our customers have said anything to us, but I also haven't seen any news out there. Have you guys, as far as anyone saying that they were actually affected by this?
No, we had a couple of customers that wanted to do a search just to look back at any certificate that had been issued that way. So we put together some queries for that, but no, I didn't hear anyone or even read anything.
Yeah, and I remember that inquiry. I thought it was a rather fascinating thing of if there had been a tooling or a process that could have looked across the PKI to say, hey, there was this thing issued this way, and oh, by the way, there's this event ID showed up over here, meaning somebody did use this authentication. It was a lot of hand sleuthing around, but like no comprehensive tool to actually find if this was being exploited in an environment. So I guess we can either assume everyone mitigated the issue, or nobody reported the exploit, or they just don't know yet.
I've still found some people that when I mentioned it to them in passing, they hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
So maybe it just didn't bubble up everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happens is I think we just assume that our megaphone will reach everybody and people will find out about this. But I suspect there's still a lot of environments that have not done anything about this. So not always a great thing.
Right.
Let's move on to a couple other things here. Do we have any questions that came in on the Q&A? Not yet. All right. So we did have something come in here, and we'll throw this out to the group. So this is around smart cards and RDP, which is actually interesting. I was working with another customer on a similar thing here. And this is around the use of smart cards and RDP when you're going through a jump host. So smart card to RDP, jump host, and then RDP to some other server beyond there. Any of you guys ever go through a process like that of setting up RDP and using cert auth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Multiple hops. I remember having this conversation a long time ago with Paul Adair, and he said he had tested it out to 5 hops.
Really?
Taking his card, taking a smart card with him. Because I was telling him it wouldn't work, and he was assuring me it would, and he was right.
I was testing up to 3 hops.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the concern is we'll see if anyone picks up on this. They also said seeing very slow login authentication, no latency. If there's any kind of differences in there. I think that the biggest thing that I immediately go to when people say, hey, we're seeing latency when doing smart card auth is usually some type of revocation checking or some type of timeout where, can't reach one CDP location or OCSP or something like that. I think that's almost always what comes to my mind when someone starts talking about latency and doing authentication. You guys have any other pointers that you would suggest?
No, I think that's a big one. I know we've had one client in the past for some reason that one of their CAs wouldn't automatically publish renewed certificates into the NT auth store, so that would cause issues when the CA certificate was renewed. Those are the only ones that they come to mind for me, at least. Yeah,
I gotcha. Oh, okay. Jesper was saying that the issue is when there is network latency. So if there's a high latency, then the smart card login doesn't seem to be working. I don't know if I've seen anything where there's particular latency or delay that would cause smart card auth not to go through as far as any kind of timing. Certainly not at 200 milliseconds or something like that. So my suspicion is there's probably something else going on, Jesper. All right, let's move on here. Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is actually something we didn't get a chance to chat about ahead of time, but something you've been working. Usually Jake. Yeah. And you don't have to share too much, but Brian, one of the things I know you and Jake have been talking about is AutoLab, and kind of using some tooling to create test labs for PKI. Can you kind of briefly touch on that?
Absolutely. So something that it has been a pain point for years in working with Active Directory and stuff that sits on top of Active Directory is we want to be able to deploy Exchange or System Center tool sets or cert services into an Active Directory environment. But sometimes the heavy lifting that it takes to get a clean AD environment up and going that you can roll back to a baseline config is so much work that it's hard to have a clean lab environment to start putting other tools on top of it. And over the years of training, I came across a lab platform that was put together by PowerShell community and then was taken over by Pluralsight called AutoLab. So it sits on top of a framework that MIT has put together called Lability, and it's a series of desired state configuration framework variables and PowerShell scripts that pulls down trial software from Microsoft. It configures Hyper-V on your system. It sits on top of Hyper-V, grabs trial software, and builds out an AD environment. And you can go from 0 to Hyper-V and a baseline Active Directory environment installed in about 40 minutes. If you've got the software, if you've got the ISOs installed, you can get a lab torn down and built back up in 10 to 12 minutes. And there's some customization you can do if you want a specific AD build out, but it's something that Jake and I are talking about really kicking the tires on more specifically for PKI solutions. Because we'd love to put some stuff out there to the community where people can test things on their own, and maybe they don't have a vCenter environment or something like that, something really robust to test ADCS on.
what I love about the idea is the fact that I know in my Hyper-V, I've got lots of different lab profiles. Inevitably, they skew over time. Things stop working. You try to do a rollback, and the domain controller and the secure channel. Like I never remember to go into AD and turn off the machine account reset timer and all that kind of stuff like that. Vadims, I know you kind of run a number of lab machines today. Do you ever run into challenges with kind of keeping them all healthy and in a usable state, or what magic do you use?
I'm waiting for the no. No, do it, Vadims. No.
I don't have any magic. My lab machines work some for decades. Yes, and where I'm testing things, and often can roll back to some working state.
Yeah, I constantly have machines that I've labeled. And yesterday I went into one of them because it says it was the CA I had connected to my Encipher HSM. There was actually no CA on that VM at all. Clearly, either it was inspirational that was going to be connected, or I rolled it back at some point to test something. Just a waste. So I'm really excited to see what you wind up putting together there, Brian. No, I'm curious to see if anyone that's listening, if you've used AutoLab, or if you have other types of automation that you use for building lab environments, whether it's for PKI or other sorts of things. I would love to hear that. Brian, is the AutoLab capable of affecting things inside of the VMs? We're not just talking about spinning up a bunch of configured VMs. You're actually like able to set up AD and install certificate services and all those sorts of things.
Correct. So via DCM, you can say build out a domain, and then there's a bunch of JSON definition files that you can customize. So you can define the name of the domain, the OUs, the service accounts that are in there, what role you install on the servers. And then with that, for the whole lab, there's a series of commands that you can set globally. So take a snapshot of everything in the lab globally, roll back to a revision, patch everything, validate everything. So you can pretty quickly spin something up and customize it to your own names of servers, names of domains, service accounts. And so something that we're working on behind the scenes is customizing AutoLab so that we could do a build out for a baseline ADCS deployment specifically, instead of using stuff that's vanilla. And you can customize what OS up through server 2022. That part has not been deployed yet. The latest version of AutoLab has definition files through server 2019. So you'd have to manually deploy 2022.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I know, Jake, I can't even think of the last time I came across a customer that actually had like a QA environment. Maybe,
it's become more and more rare. And it's, the bleed over there is significant when, hey, this server is dev. Well, it's in the same domains, in the same everything as as the prod PKI. So that's prod, really. You don't call it that, but it's prod. It's trusted by everybody.
And it used to be, I think, even in our standard template for projects, there was, okay, we'll build out a QA environment, we're going to test things. Customers just don't do it anymore. So the ability to kind of spin something up like this to test something, I could see is really kind of helpful for sure. So let's see here. We have a question, Sally. Thanks for sending it in. We'll see who wants to take this one. But Sally was asking, is it possible to run certificate services without a Microsoft CA for internal certificates from a third-party private provider? So essentially, I think what they're looking for is there a way to have certificates internally without deploying a lot of infrastructure, if I'm having to interpret that right? Who wants to tackle that one?
Just to take a swag at it, just so if I understand it right. So certificates issued internally to internal machines, like say through like a DigiCert or something like that, some type of that utility where it functions almost on behalf of?
I think it's kind of like maybe going down the route of say like a subordinated or a managed offering where somebody could have a internal PKI, but they're not having to manage the infrastructure. So they're not deploying their own certificates. And in this particular case, Sally is asking, but it would be ADCS. So I think about an offering that used to be out there, and we'll see if you can remember one of our customers that had qualified subordination where their ADCS CA was subordinated underneath a commercial provider. Yeah, and do you recall what was the final demise of that capability? Now we're putting Jake on the spot. Kind of. It was certificate transparency. Remember that whole thing where certificate transparency came out, and the whole thing here is the commercial providers. A few of them used to let you stand up your own Microsoft CA. You'd be subordinated underneath them, and then they would restrict what you wanted to do as far as what you could issue. But you could do like client auth, server auth, email kind of stuff. But certificate transparency kind of was the death knell because Microsoft ADCS didn't have a solution for it. And in fact, there is a solution for it, but all the providers went through and said, no, we don't want to be in that business anymore. So I'm not aware of anyone that is still providing a subordinated CA service. Have you guys seen anything?
I think yes. I need to check my records.
Okay.
Recently, I've updated my a blog post on this on managed PKI topic, and I went through top commercial CAs to find out for a solution, and they still offer even DigiCert offers such a feature, but still no even approximate price for this. But I suspect there would be a lot of zeros.
Yeah. But
this feature as a managed PKI is still offered. Yes. But in a question, I see that they ask a third-party private CA. I don't know what does it mean.
I think what they're kind of pointing to is that they want their own internal CA that is ADCS for the integration, but it's private, just issuing to them. But they're not having to do all the overhead of running a route and CPCPS and all those sorts of things. So I think the subordination is one option. So maybe we could follow up afterwards. I know our customer used to use Global Sign, and there were some challenges there. The other place that we could probably recommend would be a fully managed solution. Something like from Keyfactor, where they deploy a PKI for the customer and provide a subordinate CA. On premises kind of achieves the same thing. They're running it. It's fully private. It's not going up to public. Sally goes, money. Yeah, it's all money. Here's the reality. The certs may be free, but the dollars are always in either you managing it or paying someone else to manage it. There's only so many options. But yes, in short, Sally, you can either look at qualified subordination, and we'll try to follow up on that. See if anyone's still doing that, or some type of managed solution would kind of achieve that as well. Well, thanks for that question. Let's move on. Jake, one of the things that we were talking topics to kind of go through, it is actually something we've been seeing quite a bit at customers, and this is around kind of the HSM as a service and just kind of the realities of implementation timeline. So I thought maybe you could touch on what is the promised land of HSM as a service. We're mostly doing Incypher stuff, and then what are some of the impacts that we're really kind of seeing from a project perspective, because they're not turning out to be as turnkey as we would think.
Yeah, maybe could you sense my frustration in the course today? I was very frustrated.
My inbox is full of emails on these projects of
yes.
just what's going on these.
Well, so the HSM as a service, it seems like we heard about it for a long time and didn't see a lot of takers, and then with last year all of a sudden a couple of our different clients opted in, and we're going that direction. One is fully managed, meaning Encipher is hosting all of their HSMs, and the other is doing a partial managed where they have the HSM, but the client is responsible for maintaining it. And the other thing that I'm dealing with, it's a little bit different here, is different continents. So the UK and the US, and right now, what Encipher is telling us, or Entrust, I'm sorry, is they're growing their team very fast. They're having trouble keeping up. Their own words, there's not a lot of communication internally. The events are very siloed, and it's getting frustrating to work through this. So once it's there and ready, it's like nothing else. It's like having it in your own data center. It's great, but getting to that point has proven a challenge, both in the managed and the self-managed space.
Yeah. And it seems like it's mostly kind of around the VPN sort of side. So Encipher case is, hey, you have to have a VPN from your location to our facility. And that, is that kind of the biggest challenge, do you think?
Yes. And just to say that in that VPN space, in that tunnel, especially if you're going to multiple data centers like we are in Europe, multiple tunnels, several paths, lots of natting, and it's after a while it starts to make your head spin in different scenarios that I've never even thought of in the past. Like, for instance, a CA gained access by its IP address. It was registered. Well, if you have multiple tunnels, it might show up as 3 or 4 different IP addresses.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Yeah,
and
which was actually a problem when I talked to Entrust about taking one of our training content courses and saying, hey, I'd love to have labs where students could come and work with certificate services and an HSM. And our lab provider is like, okay, yeah, we could do that. And oh, by the way, your VM is going to spin up in one of 500 IP addresses. And Entrust is like, nah, that's not going to work for us. We want to know one. Like, where's everything coming from?
Well, and the only way it's working right now is, luckily, that client has the top shelf package, so it's unlimited clients. So bring as many IP addresses as you want. It's just another client license. But if you were paying per client license, that could pose a challenge. And I know they're moving in a different direction, maybe like a certificate or some other type of file to be used for authentication. But right now it's just growing pains, and hopefully we can get through this, and it'll be better at the end. But it is it's tough right now.
So I think the providers are still learning the process, like you said, and we certainly try to be the guardians for our customers and shepherd things along, but there's a lot of moving pieces. So I think when we kind of started on some of these recent projects, we really kind of thought, oh, this will be easier because we don't have to worry about doing X, Y, and Z.
Right. That's not the case. No. Like all our experience of the years of, I can set up the HSMs, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
It's out of my hands now, which is not great.
Yeah.
It's just another dependency now.
Yeah. Well, what I think is kind of interesting, and as a segue here, I recently had to bring you in on a project because we were working with a customer doing a PKI deployment, and their primary PKI subject expert left the organization. And no one really kind of knew the state of the HSMs. And in this case, they're all on-prem. Mid-deployment, and the customer had said, hey, we'll handle all the HSM stuff. No, don't worry about it. And I had to kind of come to you and say, Jake, this Luna stuff, I have no idea what state things are in, and you kind of had to spend a little time with them to sleuth out, where it was at, like this so we can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Just digging in and finding out where it was left off, and some of the paths that they chose. And it doesn't always matter what path you chose or how you did things, as long as that you can maintain that consistency throughout.
Yeah.
So that was, just trying to understand where they were. Yeah.
And that would have been the same, even if it was a HSM as a service, like that kind of the partition level, what was set, what wasn't set, really didn't change. And I think what we're kind of seeing from what organizations are asking us is that there's actually a lot of staffing shortages out there. I think we could probably name half a dozen or more customers that are actively looking for people. It's a great time to be in the PKI space, and that's the reason everyone got a raise this year. But it's one where there does kind of seem to be a staffing shortage, and I'm sure it's not just PKI related. I think organizations are struggling to find people for all manner of jobs, but that is kind of causing challenges. And I was curious to see if anyone that's listening in, if you're running into difficulties in hiring and finding resources. Brian, before you joined, as far as the staffing for you guys, were you pretty stable, or were you actively looking for positions? You joined us from the enterprise, so you're probably the closest to this that we've seen.
We were fully staffed for what we had, but we were part of an organization that had gone through an acquisition and merger. So we literally, over the course of 12 months, doubled in size by 20,000 or so employees. And so while our headcount stayed the same, the workload and the complexity of the environments that we were responsible for just exploded. And so middle and upper management were trying to make a case for additional headcounts and additional training. There were requests for, the HSM as a service piece. And Jake, I know you and I have talked a little bit with some of the clients that you've been interacting with over the last couple of weeks. There's additional complexity of the ask from management to put resources in AWS or Azure. And so there's additional thoughts around provisioning access within the cloud tenant. Like, it's not just, is there a firewall or is there a tunnel within AWS? Did you say that these two services can talk to each other? And that's an additional piece of complexity that we didn't have to deal with unless you were using something like Cisco ACI or, we were maxed out, but we were definitely fully engaged as far as, time and projects and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I know we've got probably 4 different customers right now that we've been talking about staff augmentation or some type of long-term staffing roles in. It's just kind of been a challenge. And Jake, I have you been seeing that in the projects that we've been working with? I think one of them is kind of doing a pretty complex deployment, but actually is going to have someone else completely manage it for them, a contract agency, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I would say to that is several of our clients, the people that I'm working with now are changing rapidly. So I'll kick off a project and I'll be working, with Bob. 2 weeks later, Bob's gone. now you're working with Steve.
Yeah.
And then after that, Larry. And oh, by the way, Larry is just out of college and he doesn't know how to spell PKI. So it's it's the range of people that we're working with is changing, and it's a reflection of what the talent available out there. To make another segue here, just before we started, Vadims was his usual very verbose self and was patting himself on the back for what may be the first on the team, and that is around Server 2022. So, Vadims, do you want to share real quickly what you recently did with Server 2022?
I would say not too much. I just migrated my two CAs from server core to server core on 2022.
Well, you might be the first. Well, you didn't even say it was server core earlier. I can't even tell you the last time I touched server core for a CA. So I'm going to go ahead and I will put a $10 bet that of everyone that's listening live right now, you're the only person that has migrated a server core CA from server 2000. Was it 16 or 19?
From 2012.
From 2012 to 2022. So a 10-year leap. You, sir, are the only one that have done that. So you're either crazy or brilliant or a little bit of both.
And in fact, I'm using all PKI stuff on server core since 2008 R2.
He shamed me into it.
Yes.
I never had to have it until it started working with Vadims. Like, what's this? He laughed at me when I used the GUI one day.
GUI, yeah.
Yes, and of course, using PSPKI, I don't really need much of GUI.
Nicely done. See, we're going to teach Vadims to be a sales guy yet. Richard said he's done 16 to 19. That doesn't count, Richard. You're really close, but the key there for the $10 was 2022. But 2022 is out. And the interesting thing that occurred to me the other day is I go, we should probably think about updating our training courses and having the labs on 2022. And then I'm like, certificate services, nothing's really changed there, but people are going to want to see it. So I've tasked Brian with a future project of perhaps our training courses. We'll just give you a menu and say, which of the current server OSs do you want to run? Because I suspect 16, 19, and 2022 will be around for quite some time. I still have customers that were moving off of 2012.
Vadim still had a 2003 last time I talked to him.
Well, he should. He really should.
Do you still have a Vadims?
Production.
A 2003 server PKI?
Yes. And it is one of my root CAs,
which is exactly where I would expect to see it. Yeah, Scott asked for big differences in 2022. There are 2 more 2s than there were in server 2019. So those are 2 examples. But I don't have any customers that have asked about 2022 yet. I think we're still very, very new. How about you guys? Has anyone done anything with it yet?
No, I've
deployed it. That's it.
Yeah, Vadims.
Yeah. I mean, Vadims is not only set up 2022; he's already migrated CAs to it. So
he's probably written a blog post or a book. He doesn't sleep.
He doesn't. I'm pretty sure he did more on his vacation a couple of weeks ago than most of us that were in the office.
Yeah, he did more blog posts than I've done. Thanks.
Thanks, Well, I did do a little teasing through the week of a special announcement, and I'm going to let Brian chat a little bit about what he's up to, and then we've got a little video to share. So Brian, maybe you could start by kind of cueing us on what this video is, and then we can expand a little bit from there.
Definitely. I don't mean to derail your segue, but I think Douglas had a question in the chat about upgrades before we jump to the announcement topic. Just want to make sure that his question's covered.
Well, let's see here. In-place upgrades. So anyone notice what Microsoft does now with Server 2019 or 2022 if you try to do an in-place upgrade?
I haven't tried yet.
So since 2019, it says, are you really sure you want to do this? Like it used to be, do you want to do an in-place upgrade? Yeah, check the compatibility, blah, blah, blah. And Microsoft fully supported it. Now it says, we wouldn't do this if we were you. It'll let you do it. But I think most customers now are just doing new deployments, right? It seems like everything that customers are, I'll just spin up another VM. Like that right. Seems to be the easiest answer, which is probably why I did 3 migrations yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brian. All right, so back to the topic at hand. Why don't you queue up our video here?
Definitely. So super excited to be here at PKI Solutions. Like Blade in the comics, I have walked between worlds for a number of years. So I've got a bit of a creative flair and have played in the theatrical and or video storytelling side of things. I also have a background in information technology and infrastructure, and really excited about the opportunity to work with PKI Solutions in helping share what all of the experience and the training and the knowledge that they've amassed over the years, and connecting with folks like the people that are here on the call. And so Mark and I have been talking behind the scenes, and we've put together and are launching a YouTube channel that's associated with PKI Solutions. And the idea behind this is to make it a community touch point. So one of the focuses that I'm going to be digging into over the next few months is figuring out new ways to more deeply connect with everybody, the people that are showing up on these calls on a regular basis, like getting more feedback about what it is that you're looking for, not in a salesy kind of way. I mean, like I think it was Grant that said on the call, I'm the only PKI person for 35,000 people. Like there's not many of us. And so we got to pull together. We got to life raft a little bit. Sometimes you don't talk to another certificate, SME or certificate responsible person in a given day. So if we have a chance in a week or a month to connect, I want to maximize that. So we put together a YouTube channel, and the idea is to put things out there that are common, low-hanging fruit to begin with, and we'll dig into more detail as we get more of our catalog out there.
Great. Well, let's take a look at what you put together.
I'm with PKI Solutions, and I'm the shopkeeper here at Minding the Key Store. We help new and existing PKI pros get the tech and the strategies that they need to build cert services, whether it's for a small startup or a massive enterprise. With our videos and live streams, you'll have everything that you need for your PKI journey. Look us up on YouTube and let's talk shop. Minding the Key Store.
So Minding the Key Store, I think it's a great way of kind of expanding how we're getting content out there. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of content we're going to be posting over there the next couple of days, and what people can kind of expect on the channel going forward?
Absolutely. So we talked to one of the topics we talked about earlier on the live stream today. So one of the pain points that, like I said, that I encountered in some of my last adventures over the last couple of years was having a test environment that you could kick the tires on and go back to zero on a regular basis. So we have a video that was released just before this live stream in the first part of a 4-part series in deploying AutoLab. So it's the baseline, getting the AutoLab repository or AutoLab series of scripts. And then you go from zero to setting up Hyper-V to downloading the software and then doing just a baseline basic Active Directory deployment. That's our first episode. We also have a series from our back catalog of presentations that Mark or Vadims, Jake, have done at DEF CON or Red Hat or something like that, RSA or Black Hat, excuse me, and taking those and making those Vault installments where we're putting them out there on the channel. So we're going to start with some very basic, like here's things that every PKI professional might need as part of their tool set. And then we're going to dig into more technical nitty gritty as we move ahead.
Great. And I know some of the content that we've done for office hours is going to come over as well. So that's going to kind of really be our channel for that free content going forward. And there may be some crossover of things where we have some overview things and then tie back to some expanded training that we're going to be putting into our training subscription program as well. So it's kind of a multi-tier. Now I know from talking to you, 2 really important things that we ask for everybody. So you could find our channel for the time being, since it's new, by going to pkisolutions.com/YouTube. So once our channel is legitimate and we have a direct URL, we'll point you directly to YouTube. But for the time being, you can go to pkisolutions.com/YouTube. And then more importantly, if you could go and subscribe, because tell us about what that means for us by getting people to subscribe to the channel, Brian.
Sure. So the more that people interact with the content that's on the YouTube channel, the more the suite of algorithms that YouTube uses will take that and suggest it to like-minded people. So if you're already following other content providers that talk in the PKI space, whether it's HSMs or certificate management, YouTube looks at people that are watching those videos and says, well, people are interacting with these other vendors. If they see our stuff starting to gain traction, they'll suggest us in that same space. And we really want to just get this out there and share with as many people as we can. I haven't had a chance. I'm going to put, this is people putting people on the spot. I want to spotlight some of the things that are in PSPKI. Vadims has done so much work. I want to do some segments that are in there. Here's some things that you can do to get it set up. Here's some basic testing that you can do. You know, so just a toolbox that you can pull from on a regular basis. But engaging the content is the best way to get the word out. And we can't promote it all by ourselves.
Great. And what's the magical thing that happens when we have 100 people?
When we get to 100 subscribers, we can customize the address and actually put the name of the channel. Right now, it's youtube.com/alphabetsoup. So it's just F2.
Actually, it's UC6B9. So, I mean, we are the UCI channel right now. But yes,
Indeed.
so PKIsolutions.com/YouTube, a little easier for the time being. But if you get a chance, and we're going to be releasing stuff on a pretty regular basis. And do you want to kind of talk at a high level what that's likely to look like? I know we have things somewhat in flux, but can you kind of give us a teaser for what the next month or two might hold?
Sure. So our focus in the month of September is setting up that lab environment. So that's our AutoLab series. The month of October, we're going to focus on the creepy and spooky, and we're going to go through our panel here and do a series of one-on-ones talking about tales of horror from PKI in the month of October, celebrating Halloween. And then we've got some things, we don't have things completely fleshed out for November, but I'm thinking maybe more PowerShell driven stuff, but we need to plan a little further into that one.
Thankful for Vadims.
Yeah, I was going to say, we make it Thanksgiving and we could talk about PKI and stuffing or something like that, but excellent. Well, I'm excited to see things happen there. I'm probably more excited to see what t-shirt and theme you have for each time. So you seem to have quite the extensive library. It's almost like watching The Big Bang Theory and trying to figure out what shirt Sheldon's going to wear. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm worried what the wardrobe budget's going to turn into when Brian goes, I've gone through all of my stuff.
Jake, did you hear that? I have a wardrobe budget.
3 years.
Hey, zero is a number. Zero is a number, right? Yeah. It's a valid number. Well, excellent. So one last plug, PKIsolutions.com/YouTube. And over the next week or two, we'll probably be seeing those archives on the PKI Solutions site moved over as well. So look for new content, subscribe, you'll get notified when it's over there. So thanks for that, Brian. And of course, the Vadims is pinging me as we're talking about all this great stuff. And he says, I have more to say about 2022 migration. So let's loop back to our resident expert on 2022, Mr. Server 2022. What else can we touch on there on CA migrations?
Well, it isn't 2022 specific thing. It is ADCS thing. I don't know if it was documented anywhere, but I was tracking these for many years on TechNet forums, but I was too lazy to test and check that. But while testing migration options from 2012 to 2022, I found an issue when you install a new CA and specify a path to a PFX file, which you exported from a previous installation. installation. And a problem here is that when you use this approach by picking PFX file, it is automatically imported by installer, but case are marked non-exportable. So you can't back up CA case anymore if you lose your PFX, and furthermore, if you do CA renewal using a new K pair, then a new case will be a non-exportable as well.
Yeah.
So either use certitil import PFX, common to import case to personal store, and then specify existing installed certificate. Because certitil import PFX defaults to per table case.
Yeah, and you know, I know my process for a long time is it's been that same thing: go into cert LM, you know, import the certificate, and then be able to check the box. But I suspect there's probably been a number of times, and I think you're right that I've seen them on the TechNet forums as well, where people are like, "Hey, I know my CA key is here, and I can't export it and take it somewhere else." No, jailbreak can certainly help with it, but
No, jailbreak could help with in Windows Server 2003 because jailbreak can export only legacy copy case. CNG case still are not supported by jailbreak, and if your CA stores case in KSP, then you are out of luck, and you have either to carry with existing installation and do every hour backups of these systems, or think about creating a brand new CA.
Yeah, and you know, I think the crux of it is if you bring the PFX in manually, check the box, then you're okay. If you don't catch it, you got to flatten and start again with the PFX, or delete the key and bring it in some other way. But it's definitely something. I kind of was doing migrations yesterday that were all around Insight for HSMs. And they have their own issues as well. So there's definitely a lot of things that happen when you pick up and move your CAs. Did have a question that came in I wanted to get to from Charles. And by the way, Charles, congratulations on the new job. But Charles was asking, when looking at vendor products that are integrating with ADCS for the issuance of virtual smart cards, so VMware, Citrix, where do you see the responsibility of these systems, since they act as an RA or subordinate CA? Is it an application? Is it a CA? Brian, I'm going to throw this to you because I'm curious to see how you guys would have addressed this at your former position.
I was actually typing out a response. I thought we were going to run out of time. So good handoff. No, I think it's a growing pain of the increased role that ADCS has and certificate services has in the enterprise or corporate landscape. In the last two adventures that I was in, where we were responsible for PKI, traditionally ADCS was seen as on-prem Active Directory integrated, and anything that was adjacent to that, it was a struggle, whether that was DigiCert and third-party trusted, or if it was VMware related or Cisco related certificate issuance. Sometimes we didn't even know about it. We find out after the fact, oh, this service went down. You know about certs. This other team spun it up. Can you help us out? And we find out they spun up their own CA, got it trusted in Active Directory, and went from there. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag depending on the environment, and certainly felt to me like a growing pain where it's not always seen as it's certificate related. So the cert team or the AD team or wherever that is responsible for that too.
Yeah. And Jake, I know you and I have talked quite a bit about things like CPCPS and how they deal with these subordinate appliances.
Right. Yeah. And as you call them, and I guess the reference being certificate manufacturers rather than issuers, so we can kind of carve them out because they can't follow the regular procedures that we dictate for our CAs of protecting those private keys with an HSM or following all the processes that we set out for them.
Yeah, and I love Vadims' response earlier in chat, and she goes, "Of course, it's probably just part of the PKI. It's the very black and white factual answer. If you're a subordinate CA, you're a CA. You're part of the PKI. It's just the way it is. And then you get the business, and the business says we want to do things different. We think that this falls somewhere else. But we see a lot of these appliances that are out there, and they don't fall neatly anywhere. I think we got a couple minutes, Jake. One of the things that you had suggested was this issue that we had seen recently of kind of like hybrid issues, Active Directory, and one of the things that you're kind of troubleshooting around there with credential roaming and that kind of stuff. I mean, what are we seeing from organizations that are doing hybrid AD or other types of integrations and challenges?
Yeah, and I had mentioned, I put in the chat earlier for Beth. She'd asked about the certificate template. So this I said, hold that thought. So here it is. So some of the core things that we've counted on in PKI for a long time, such as credential roaming, doesn't seem to be doing great as we move to a hybrid scenario. And case in point is I'm troubleshooting with the client right now where we're trying to roll out the Windows Hello for Business for the hybrid joined machines, and they had credential roaming enabled. And I brought Mark in, I brought everybody. We're chasing this around and around, and we can't kill these certificates. They keep coming back that the normal procedures aren't working on these hybrid machines. So some of the things that we've counted on in the past, Microsoft is going so fast at times with Azure and some of these technologies that I think it's impossible to vet all of the older things.
Yeah.
You go back and try and do any research on it, and they're talking about, a big disclaimer, must be XP SP3. I mean, these are the things I'm
cred
looking
roaming.
at.
I mean, cred roaming's been around for a long time. Right. It was a hot fix for Server 2003 and XP, and now we got Azure AD where not all attributes are synced up natively, and credential roaming is using confidential blob objects, and they don't go to Azure AD, and then user logs in, deletes something, but it doesn't get replicated. It's a challenge for some of these things.
Yep, it is a challenge, and we're trying to work closely with Microsoft on this one with this client and find out where we're falling down here. So it definitely is something that it's a pain point, and I know we're about out of time, but I'm curious if anyone else is running into this as well. The tools we talk about in web enrollment, it's been around forever, and it always just works. Well, now that we're starting to do more hybrid and all of this, some of these things don't always just work, at least the way they used to. And I think that's what we're bumping up against here.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is there's always kind of assumptions that through the server OSs, AD was always AD. There was always LDAP. We could do a schema extension, and then all of a sudden Azure AD came along and kind of does some things, kind of doesn't do things, doesn't do group policies. It does policies, and it's for the core stuff, it's there, but then we take some of these fringe cases, and it just doesn't, work natively there. And I think one of the surprising things, and maybe I'm remembering this wrong, I thought one of the things we ran into is that Azure AD, was it that it doesn't natively support smart card authentication like it does the Windows Hello for Business, but there was something else about smart cards that weren't there natively.
Well, that's the provider is not natively there. We have to go in and manually update the template to be that special provider and follow that process. So it's just, growing pains, I guess, for this as well. And another blog article or something I'll need to put together. When I'm done with it.
Wait,
Add it
all right,
to the
well,
list.
that's actually a great topic because I believe last month we talked about how we were going to be adding something else to your blog list. Someday I want to see this list because it's like a treasure trove of ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all about it. As long
All
as the
right,
cases of Red Bull keep showing up.
Yeah, I
it'll
was
probably
going to
happen.
say, well, maybe the Red Bull needs to stop showing up until some of those blog articles come out. Well, wow, we have made it through another hour of PKI questions. It is always an honor to spend time with both the team here and everyone that shows up. Super excited about the YouTube channel. And in fact, Brian, can we expect this office hours to maybe be the first one that you'll bring over from the office hours series?
We could do that. We can totally do that. I thought you were going to go with let's go live. I was like, well, we got some testing before we can go live on YouTube together. We could certainly take this recording and move it over there. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll make sure that people can find this. If we didn't get to your questions, though, feel free to follow up with us, info@pkisolutions.com. Check out our YouTube channel. We'll be trying to facilitate questions and interactions there. When you get a chance, subscribe over there. We'll be back in October with our next office hours. And hopefully we've got another announcement that we'll be real close to making then as well. In the meantime, we'll see if we can get Vadims to upgrade another server core to maybe a beta version of Server 2025, something like that. Jake will
I'm going to do
check
it
on
next
the Red
week.
Bull.
And then before I talk to Vadims so he can tell me how I did.
Yeah, and Jake, I haven't even had a chance to share this yet. I just found out that there's such a thing as a Red Bull slushy. I never knew that this thing. Yeah, you might have to come out to Portland. We've got Red Bull slushies.
I don't like to mix my stuff.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll have this posted up for on demand. And look forward to seeing you all in October. So have the great rest of September, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
What's going to be the T-shirt next month, Brian?
You'll have to tune in and watch. Find out. I have many to choose from.
Boom.